Yo, crisscrossing wires, back with another video. In today's video, I'm going to talk about all the moto vloggers that are on YouTube that have successful channels. They have huge followings, and I often ask myself why, because honestly, at the end of the day, these guys aren't really teaching people anything. They're just displaying what type of bikes they're riding, the equipment and components that they're using, that they can afford to use, or that they're being sponsored to use. And people suck all that up as though it's the gospel. Not only that, some of these moto vloggers, and trust me, I'm not hating at all by any means, but some of them have started their channels in very short periods of time. And let's just be real, because once again, I've said this before, they have that mainstream sort of look and demeanor and personality that they blow up with these huge followings. But at the end of the day, like I said, what they're telling their viewers is total bullshit. Now, reason why I'm making this video today is because I see several of these channels that are opting to trade in their ASI controllers for something that is nowhere near on the same level. And I don't know what kind of trouble I'm gonna get into by adding this on my video, other people's videos, but I'm going to do it, because one thing I'm gonna do here is keep it 100% real. I don't give a damn who thinks what. Now, this video right here, let me go back, because I was just watching this and I was listening to what he said. Check this out.
To feel. So we went to Darwin EV. We said, hey,
hold on, let me go back a little bit.
He just wasn't loving his BAC 4000. That controller's really outdated. There really isn't much customization as far as using an app on the display. You can do different power modes, but above that, there's really not much you can do. So he just didn't feel like his bike.
Did he just say that there's really not much you can do on a BAC 4000, a ASI controller? Man, let me tell you something. ASI controllers can do anything. Anything. They can run anything. The only problem with ASI controllers is that they aren't user friendly for the average person to plug and play and figure these things out. But there also are apps and integration systems like GLE integration and Kilowatt, which is a third-party app, which makes it a little more user-friendly for the average person. Now, to say that there's not much you can do on an ASI controller is is mind-boggling to me, because you can do more on the ASI than any other controller. Whether you have access or not is the question. But like I said, with the integrated apps and Kilowatt, you still can do more than these other controllers that they're talking about. But like I said, wasn't this just this? It wasn't this. Oh man, it wasn't just this channel, man. It was other channels that was saying the same thing. They switching over to Torps. There's another channel right here. He had a BAC 4000. He switched over to a Torp. Now, I'm going to go to this channel here, EV Components Review.
Hello, YouTube.
And reason why I go to this channel is because this channel does teardowns of controllers. So not only is it speaking about software and the different software these controllers use, but it's showing you the actual hardware. The actual hardware is what you pay for, the actual components themselves, and the actual parts and components that are inside of these controllers that make them do what they do. Now, a lot of these controllers, some of them use top quality components, some of them not so much. Some of them, their build quality is terrible. Some of them not so much. Some of them have great build quality and great components. But let's just get into the controller that these guys were talking about just in those videos. Now, it's just not this controller, because I've heard it with KO, a whole bunch of them, man. But let's look at this Torp controller that everybody is swearing by. Now, I will be honest in saying that as far as some of the hardware in this Torp controller, exactly like what this guy says, the power stage, it has a really good power stage. But the only thing that's limiting this controller is the lack of MOSFETs. It only has 12 MOSFETs. So the fact that they are saying that this controller can compete with other high-end controllers, how is it going to do that when it only has 12 MOSFETs? You can't get blood from a turnip, no matter how good those turnips have been planted in the soil, and you know what other stuff is used, Miracle Grow and all that. You still can't make them do more than what they're physically capable to do. But let's look at this teardown, and I'm gonna skip
amps, that's just how that works.
to some of the parts.
You're going to run it at some percentage less.
Let's go to the beginning of this a little bit.
This is something that you don't get with typical VESC. This is something that they implement a little bit different, but that's the only variation on the theme. Over here, I forget
In fact, what he's talking about now, let me just skip to the power stage portion of this video.
So do I. This is a very nice, tidy, well done power stage. So here is your battery minus bus. Here is your low side shunts, which is a classic VESC implementation of phase current sensing. Here is your low side shunts. Here's battery plus. And so all of your current paths are really tight, really efficient, and really good. So big piece of brass right to the shunts, right to the low side MOSFETs. Here's your phase buses, 1, 2, 3. And as you can see, there is like almost no gaps between this and the MOSFETs. This is a damn good power stage. As far as efficiency, as far as really, really tight phase buses and battery buses, this is hard to beat right here. That's a really, really good power stage. But again, you can see 12 MOSFETs. This is not going to compete with a 24 FET controller or 30 or 36 FET controller. It's just not. It's only got 12 MOSFETs on it. Yes, they are tall, and yes, they are maximum of 300 amps each, but you know, you don't ever get to run it at 300 amps. That's just how that works.
Not only that, look at the physical size of this thing. This thing is super small. Now, they're claiming that this controller can output 25 kilowatts. It may be possible it can output 25 kilowatts, but how long will it be able to output 25 kilowatts in the heat of summertime under extreme conditions? This thing is encased in a little plastic casing. It has nothing to dissipate the heat at all. There's no heat sink on this thing. How is this thing going to produce 25 kilowatts and not be able to dissipate the heat that a controller making 25 kilowatts is going to create? Okay, it's in a tiny plastic case. The only thing cooling these MOSFETs is these bus bars right here. That's it. That's it. But ain't no way impossible this thing is going to be producing 25 kilowatts and not start going in protection for thermal overheating. You know, it's gonna overheat and start throttling down. No doubt in my mind. Okay. All right. Now let's look at other controllers that people are trading in ASIs on. Let's look at what he was saying about. Let's see. Hold on. Let me go down and find the KO controllers, man. And man, this guy. For anyone that ever knows, those little power connectors that you screw the phase wires to and the battery B plus and ground to, if you tighten them too tight, they break right off from the board because they're not really secured onto the board tight. That's one thing that's terrible and shoddy about how they're made. But let's see. Well, here's one. Let's just click on this.
And certainly nothing.
Now that's the power stage.
From these pads to the brass standoffs down here. I'm going to have to come up with some clever thing.
Let me go back a little bit more.
So yes, they too can work loose and then rattle around inside and create problems. So the method of securing the logic board to the power stage is meh. Yeah, definitely a problem waiting to happen. And good luck getting KO to even acknowledge that that's the case. Never mind do anything about it, because KO cuts corners. I'm going to have to come up with some clever thing for KO, but yeah, corner cutting is the name of the game for them. It is a Chinese company, and as is not unusual for Chinese companies, they are always looking for ways to cheapen manufacturing in any way possible. And, well, that is definitely the case here. Everything from Chinese capacitors to brass rather than copper standoffs to, not using copper reinforcing and everything else. Yeah, this is awful. As far as the current paths are concerned, other areas are okay. Chinese caps, that's not import. That's import from China to China. Sorry, that's not a high-grade component. That's a cheap one. The current paths on here, so you can't really see it on camera. I can do a macro video or a macro lens video later on so you can see these things much more clearly. But there is a paper thickness circle on these pads, and that is the current path from these pads to the brass standoffs down here. So yeah, it's not a very large surface area here anyway, because it's pretty thin brass, but then it's even thinner when it gets to here, because it's literally just a razor's edge kind of contact area. And then of course with no copper reinforcing, you're getting a lot of heat here, because this is like the battery plus bus. That's like where the mass amount of battery plus current passes, and it's only got 2 standoff points on either end, which are already high resistance because they're just a butt joint. And then there's no copper reinforcing, and then you have a thin spot in the middle. Battery plus bus on here is going to get pretty warm, and all that's going to do is cause these capacitors to get hot, and they don't like heat anyway. Electrolytics don't, and that's why they have these score marks in the top of the aluminum can, so that they can crack open rather than explode. And when they do that, well, they're not capacitors anymore. So these capacitors will have short lives just from heating, not from anything else like being, I don't know, cheap Chinese capacitors. So anyway, enough of that. The power stage is fraught with really awful design choices and cut corners and cheap things done. Something that I said on Facebook, and I was wrong,
I mean, look
was
at
that
that
there was
shit,
no
man.
battery plus bus on the power stage. And in fact, there is one. It's just not a very good one. So in their pictures, you can't see it. I can because I'm looking at it, but it's probably not going to show up on camera. But so here's one standoff. Here's where battery plus comes in. Here's another brass standoff. And then there is a circuit trace that runs all the way across the top of the board here underneath those MOSFETs. And it's about, I don't know, 10 millimeters wide or so. But it's just circuit trace, typical circuit trace thickness. It's not even like double thickness or anything like that. It's very, very thin. And it's completely inadequate for the battery plus bus. Never mind that this too is also equally inadequate, and no way in hell will this ever handle the current that KO claims, because there's just simply not enough copper here for that by any stretch of the imagination. This will create a hotspot, and it's right on the backside of the MOSFETs where you don't want heat anyway. So yeah.
And it's not just this KO Moto Pro, it's all of KO controllers, all of them. Alright, let's go take a look at what he's saying about a far driver. I saw that somewhere. I had looked at. Alright, let's see what he's saying about far driver.
Hello YouTube, D. Baudry here. Welcome to EV Components Review. On the bench today is a
Let me speed it up.
96 not super awesome, not super terrible. Definitely liked the the polyvinyl chloride glass reinforced plastic that was in the Vodal shell more, because that is like an absolutely brilliantly tough piece of plastic, whereas this is just, you know, crappy ABS, you know, which is kind of the same fare that you get out of, like, say, KO Moto, which is far driver. So yeah, it comes off the same molding line, I'm pretty sure, same tech used, everything. Glass reinforcing wears your molds out faster, which adds cost, and of course glass reinforced and better quality plastics cost more too. And so anyway, yeah, that's really impressive aspect of Vodal, and not so much for far drivers slash KO Moto. Anyway, let's set that aside and let's look a little bit closer here.
So you were saying far driver and KO
pretty much
almost the same
right?
shit.
The shell is of less importance than what's inside it. And let's pull off this little daughter board here. Talk about that for a minute. There we go. Alright, so everything here was potted. You know, I had to depot it, clean everything, washed it all in denatured alcohol after I pulled up all the potting, to get all the little bits out of everything. You know, still like stuff down in between, like legs and
Let's speed it up to the more important parts of this.
Pretty clean and stuff. But yeah, once I was washed it all down with denatured alcohol and a toothbrush, then I took it out to the kitchen sink and put dish soap all over everything, scrubbed it again with a tooth. Yeah, obviously, here's your three connectors that the daughter board sits on. Over here is your DC to DC converter. I saw this on the 530 as well, that you've got a MOV on there. So, you know, any kind of high voltage spikes that might possibly get through, that MOV is going to, you know, basically shunt that to battery minus or ground, which is good. Yeah, don't typically see MOVs on motor controllers, so it's kind of cool to see that there, and it was on the 530 as well. Anyway, got a couple ceramics in here for dealing with high frequency noise off the battery bus, from down here pretty much. Is where that would come from. This is a 160 volt electrolytic capacitor. On the input side, there's your DC to DC buck chip. Here's your output filter. Think about it. You shouldn't do this. Yeah, really what should be done is you reinforce all this stuff.
Hold on.
96-530, and here it is again on the 96-850. So battery minus is here and here on here, and this is an RF plane right here. So it only takes a single ground post. But this isn't really a current path, and it's seriously choked right there anyway. If this was a current path, that spot would definitely burn through. However, battery plus, this is a reinforcing current path for what's down here, and that's what I don't like about it. You shouldn't do this. Really what should be done is you reinforce all this stuff, and that way you don't depend on the logic board in any way, shape, or form for current carrying capability. But in this case, you are. So, not very good. And that's true for the 530 as well. And, you know, like I've harped on this on KO Moto controllers, they're doing the same thing. They flat out absolutely have to have the copper on the logic board to reinforce their power stages, because their power stages battery plus buses are just so flat out inadequate. And here it is, far driver doing the same thing. Gosh, I wonder why. Could it be that far driver and KO Moto are actually the exact same development? I don't know. Is that, wow, is that a coincidence? Maybe it is. I don't know. Yeah, definitely a coincidence. Yeah, that's what it is. Okay, or they really are one and the same. Yeah, and that's really what it is. Okay, so here is the power stage, and let's flip that over so all the words are right set up. There we go. Okay, so something I like about this a good bit, you've got 18 ceramic caps here. Super cool, good job, Far Driver. In the future, when you do more stuff that gets renamed as KO Moto, please insist that they get more than the postage stamp, you know, symbolic 3 ceramic caps like KO Moto is doing nowadays. Insist that they put 18 ceramic caps like you have on here on their controllers, because they are flat out needed.
At least that's
they're already
better.
inadequate on the KO controllers as is. So this is how it should be. This is much more like it, and quite frankly, this is not bad. I have to say it's adequate for the job. It's good enough. Would I like more? I always like more ceramic caps, yes, but this is enough. Okay, so yeah, watch my macro videos if you want to learn a bit about MOSFET packages, because I will go into this package, which is the TO263-P7. I think that's what it's called. I keep constantly trying to mix up that name. Yeah, TO263P7, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Anyway, go into this versus TO220 versus TO163 packages. So yeah, you might learn something about electronics by watching that. These buses are not super good. So battery plus is this ring all the way around the outside, and you can see they sort of kind of reinforced it with solder. All I can say is meh, not very good. Yeah, and you know, this is the same sort of stuff that you see in KO Moto stuff.
All right,
you know,
enough with that. So basically he's saying Far Drive and KO is the same. All right, now let's see what he says about BAC. Obviously, I talk trash about them, but let's see what he says about the BAC. Let's see, where's the BAC? Did I pass it already? Sorry, bear with me. Okay.
Simpler.
Let me back
Port
up.
in a motor controller. Why people aren't doing it is, and instead use an STM32, because if that was the case.
Now this is an ASI controller. It was potted like the rest of them. Has all this stuff inside it, but obviously to remove the potting, he had to move all these caps and stuff around, so they all bent up and out of shape. But he did that. He'll say that. But anyway.
And I can pretty much guarantee you that somebody out there would be trying to port this thing over to run VESC. But because it's not an STM32, it's a TI chip, you know, whatever it is, a TP320, that's not going to happen. But it would be super cool if you were running VESC on an ASI BAC 8000. Anyway, yeah, it's still FOC, which is very good. Can't complain about that, even slightly, because quite frankly, that is an important improvement in motor control that frankly everybody should be doing. And considering how inexpensive it is nowadays to have FOC support in a motor controller, why people aren't doing it is a complete mystery.
I said ASI had the best FOC in the game.
Okay, great, that's fine, but it doesn't have to be that hard either, because I can tell you that like nuclear controllers are not that complex to set up, and they are in fact field-oriented control as well. ASI is a more complicated one, but even that, if they would make their software more user-friendly, wouldn't be hard either. So
no,
let's
it's
talk about
definitely
this
not
board.
User-friendly.
Okay, this
as
is going to sound like I've
backdoor.
contradicted myself, but it's not. So as you can see, 5 brass standoffs. So several key factors to those standoffs. First of all, they are much larger than the ones on the KO Pro. So just diameter alone, there's more surface area. Second is the solder pad that they're soldered onto. This is a multi-layer board, probably 5 or 6 layers inside there of copper. And these pads, they go through all of those layers. And they're soldered together, and they've got little holes in them. Those are called vias. That are soldered as well, and this is soldered down to all of that. So there's much more support here just in diameter, in circuit board traces, all that stuff to make this much stronger. Whereas on the KO Pro, that is a single trace on one side of a metal backed board. So strength isn't really its strong point anyway, whereas this has a lot more strength to it. Plus, this also has a center stud, which is also soldered in place. So much more support here, and so much so that ASI was confident that you weren't going to wrench these things out very easily and used hex head screws everywhere, rather than Phillips head screws that are more likely to cam out than to crank on them too far and possibly twist the brass studs out. So yeah, I have a great deal of confidence that these are going to hold up, you know, even for some Gorilla that might over tighten on them a little bit. But could you twist these out? Well, sure, solder will eventually break, but this has got so much more strength on it than the KO Pro does that that's probably fairly minimal of a risk. All right, something else that I said about the KO Pro is it has 2 current sensors, and well, look at that, so does ASI. Thing is though, is I'll bet you about 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever of the KO Pro current sensors cost as much as one of these. These are very high grade current sensors, and ASI only needs 2 of them. Whereas, you know, KO, they've got the cheapest possible ones you can have, and they also use 2. So I would say that this is completely acceptable, and quite frankly, 2 current sensors versus 3 is a somewhat common thing. So I'm not really overly concerned about that. This isn't a cost-cutting measure. This was simply they didn't need a 3rd one. Whereas KO, they're already cheap and they're already cutting corners every chance they get. So yeah, they didn't have one just because it was money they could save on manufacturing costs. Whereas ASI did not cut corners. They used very expensive current sensors. And they also use Nichicon capacitors. These are very good capacitors, very low ESR capacitors, very reliable, high, long lifespan capacitors. These are all 220 microfarad, and there's 19 of them. Nichicon, good brand. Awesome to see that. I knew these were in here before I ever even cracked the case, because ASI doesn't skimp on quality. And I'll talk about that some more too when I get to the MOSFETs. Anyway, this is all a very good design. I don't really have a lot to say here that's negative. You can see on the board here, so there's several little ceramic caps, and those are on all the phases for high frequency ripple filtering. And each one of the phases has got a bunch of those little ceramic caps. I think I said they were tantalums on the KO. Yeah, I make mistakes from time to time. What can I tell you? Each one of the phases has 2 little 6-pin chips on there, and that's your high side and low side gate drivers. And I believe that guy right there, I haven't looked up its part number to be sure, but I'm pretty sure that's like some kind of a demultiplexer sort of a device that's actually doing the gate driver control. I'm pretty sure that's what that guy does. All right, so was there something else I want to show on here? I think that's it. Yep, that's it. Let's flip this bad boy over and look at MOSFETs. All right, so the first thing I want you to notice is there is no copper reinforcing. That sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it? After I went on and on and on about the shoddy quality of copper reinforcing in the KO Pro, here I am looking at a BAC 8000 and there is no copper reinforcing. But there is. You just can't see it. But I can. Okay, so let me explain what these solder pads are. So that's a phase, that's battery minus, that's a phase, that's battery plus, and that's a phase. Okay, so first of all, there is a rectangle of circuit trace right here, just standard thickness stuff, nothing particularly special, but it's that big. And that's that phase. Then there's another one right there that's also about that big for that phase. And then there's another one right there that's that big for that phase. Plus, keep in mind, this is a multi-layer board. There's like 5 or 6 layers here, and each one's got its own layer of copper in it. So inside the board, there is another layer that is like that, and here, that is reinforcing this layer of copper on here. So while you can't see it, there is actually copper reinforcing here. It's just inside. Also, this is battery minus. there is a sheet of copper inside here that is literally everything here. That is the battery minus. And then there's another one on another layer, same thing, full size there, that's battery plus. And then through all of the through holes, the vias that are in here, all of those traces and layers and stuff are tied together to the MOSFETs and back over to these pads. So while you don't see any copper reinforcing, it's there, it's just inside.
Now let me stop for a second to say, you see all those MOSFETs? You count them: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18 on that one side, 36 in total. That Torp 500 had 12 MOSFETs. 12 MOSFETs compared to 36 MOSFETs. No way those 12 MOSFETs can output the same power as those 36 MOSFETs. Not even on the same playing field. Okay, so if you think you're getting the same level of power handling capability in that cigarette pack, don't even think about it. Alright, another thing I want to tell you guys, because I had read where some people were saying that BAC 4000s was melting some of the stuff. Well, okay, if you're running a back, even a 4000 to max power, or full power, you should have a heat sink on it. The way they come, that's just the basic controller. When you're running them at extremely high power, you should get the external heat sink to dissipate that high heat. If you're running in at high power and you don't have that heat sink, then yes, the plastic will melt on there. They get that hot, which is why I was saying that little tiny Torp TC500, no way it can make that amount of power and dissipate the heat when there's not even aluminum sheet like on the BAC 4000, the 8000. At least has the aluminum sheet right there that releases heat, and that's what the heat sink screws down to. On that one, it's encased in plastic, so you can't even add a heat sink to that TC500. Anyway, man, I'm not going to let it go through this whole thing with the back, but bottom line, he starts saying, and you can go watch this video for yourself, the MOSFETs are high quality. All of these components in this BAC are high quality. They didn't cheap skimp on anything. You can check this channel out. Some people like this guy's channel, some people don't, but I mean, he's showing what's in the controllers. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, it's actual factual information. He's showing you what's on the inside. Okay, so although people like pretty controllers, what they look like on the outside, and that's great. If you guys that are going to be competing and racing and all that are buying controllers because you want to buy which one looks the best and which one is the prettiest, then I'm going to love you guys. You guys are going to get smoked worrying about, what's pretty, what's stealthy, what you can't see and what you can see. Man, don't even attempt to be in competition if that's your main goal, or the ease of operation, or whether it's plug and play or not. Plug and play does not make it a better controller or make it perform better. Okay, alright, so enough said about that. Like I said, I'm gonna start a Kickstarter. Hopefully I can get gangs of money, because I want to buy up all these ASI controllers that you guys that want to buy the KOs and the Torps and all the rest of those controllers. You getting rid of, it's like you got a Ferrari and you gonna go trade your Ferrari in for a Hellcat. You think it's a Hellcat because everybody else is buying Hellcats, but you had a Ferrari. Let me get them Ferraris up off you, and let me get them up off you at a discount rate. Alright, y'all, that's it. Let me see, I ain't really got much else to talk about here other than what I'm always saying, man, that the the RZ is the platform that makes sense. We're gonna go out on my theme song, my channel trailer, and call it a day. I'll run a little bit of that for y'all. And the reason why I was doing that, just to mess with the trolls, but even more so, I had some points in here where I was showing just, you know, just how the beast was performing with that ASI controller. And for the dude that said that, you know, you couldn't do much with it, that display right there, that's kilowatt. Now, I got a video of showing kilowatt and all the parameters you can change in kilowatt. Man, you can do all kinds of stuff just in kilowatt itself. Now, backdoor, if you got access to backdoor, you can make a ASI controller drive an electric car, man. It's nothing those controllers can't do. They are fully capable to operate any and everything, man. Make no mistake about it. Alright, y'all. Take it easy. Take care. Crisscross and wise. Deuces. We out with the facts.